Ministry in the New Testament church. We follow through ancient history, before Jesus. What was God's intention with his creations and then with his representatives here on earth? Then we looked at how Jesus demonstrated by example and helped us better understand what it meant to true religion, true faith, and to truthfully represent his character. This week we are looking at how this was picked up by the early church.
If I have to summarize with few words only Jesus' life timeline here on earth, I would use those three words: mission, ministry, and sacrifice. And although all of them are crucially important, the one in the middle, the second one, ministry, is the one that, by my opinion, defined the reason for the mission and the sacrifice. Because Jesus came to minister, not to be ministered. He didn't come to rule or to govern. So in this lesson, I'm asking the question, do we sometimes misunderstand our mission as followers of Christ?
We talk a lot about the Great Commission in Matthew 28. Go and make disciples. And we go, we teach and baptize. But we may need to take a step back for a moment and think for a bit. In verse 20, Jesus says, teaching them to observe all things that I have commanded you. And this is where I think we need to spend a little bit more time thinking about the things that Jesus commanded. Looking through the Gospels, it wasn't so much about the complicated theology or religious practices, but to take care of those in need, those that are hurting, to be there for each other. So let's talk ministry.
The community in the first century that was born from the group of the 12 disciples and the hundreds and thousands Pentecostal converts was a group like no other at this time in the whole Roman Empire. What do I mean? Try to envision a community like this. First, leaders who had no interest whatsoever in their subordinates' wealth, offerings, and money. On the contrary, they wanted to separate themselves from being in touch and managing the material possessions and their distribution. And second, the rich and wealthy people in this community were selling their assets like jewelry, land, possessions for the purpose to satisfy the needs of those who were hurting and hungry. Both examples about those leaders and wealthy people screamed ministry, not rulership. That kind of spirit dominated in the New Testament church.
The early church wasn't an utopic community where everything was perfect. They had lots of issues, but we see them doing ministry as Jesus asked. Even though they had to spread a big theology, and face severe intellectual, social, and cultural challenges, they kept the focus and the importance at the right place, taking care of people.
The gospel eventually was spread beyond the boundaries of Judea and Jerusalem. The question was, did it have the same effect on people, now Gentiles? And the answer is definitely. What Jesus did inspired not only Jews but also Gentiles. And we read about one example who was Tabitha, or her Greek name was Dorcas. And we read about her that she was always doing good and helping the poor. How? By making and giving away clothes. She was committed to provide something to the poor that she was able to prepare and to produce. She was known for her generosity to the point that God brought her back to life. She made me think that each and every one of us can find a way to utilize our skills and our abilities in helping others, because she was a true reflection of what Christ was here on earth. And so can we.
What do people think about our Christianity? When Dorcas died, people cried. They miss her. Will we be missed because of the difference that we make in people's lives? This is the ultimate test of our Christianity. The lesson then makes something very interesting. It looks at Paul and James. one symbol of salvation by faith, where our works can't do anything to help us secure salvation. And the other, symbol of a very practical faith and religion that is fruitful through what we do in our daily dealings. Even though often opposed and sometimes struggling to marry these two concepts, it's not surprising to find out that both share the same core, the same simple focus.
Apostle Paul was always actively promoting distribution of wealth to those in need. And we read in 2 Corinthians chapter 8 how he reasons it and how he justifies it before the members of his community. Verse 13 and 14. Our desire, he says, is not that others might be relieved while you are hard pressed when giving, but that there might be equality. At the present time, your plenty will supply what they need, so that in turn, their plenty will supply what you need. The goal is equality. Paul saw the community of Christ as sharing, walking together towards salvation and toward the heavenly Jerusalem. It was mutual advantage, mutual benefit, and also mutual responsibility that he was encouraging within the body of Christ. Active giving from both sides, although different in character and in measure.
Paul, preaching to the Gentiles and the old Christian core of Jews in Jerusalem, got into some serious questions and issues. They gathered together to discuss them, made some decisions, but what is big for me here is the way Paul summarizes the outcome in Galatians 2:10. He says, all that they asked was that we should continue to remember the poor. The very thing that I have been eager to do all along. Now stop for a moment. Is it possible that when we gather to discuss our church issues, our differences, that the outcome and the summary may be the same? All that they asked was that we should continue to remember the poor, the very thing that we have been eager to do all along.
At the end of the lesson comes up the name of James. It is believed to be the brother of Jesus. However, another name was attached to his first name, the Just. James the Just. There was no sugarcoating of reality with James. He said it as it was. As a leader in Jerusalem, he had to stand and to defend the weak and those who were forgotten in his community. He was about fairness and no discrimination in the social dynamics of the church. Many examples in the first century church were confirmed and demonstrated what really Jesus was all about. For us, it's left only to humble ourselves and to do the same.
We like to say, I will pray for you. And this is good. We need more prayers. But the lesson makes also the point saying that James argues that wishing someone well, even wishing them God's blessings, will be of little comfort if they are suffering from cold or hunger. This lesson was about Jesus' commission and our ministry. Join us again next week to continue the study with the lesson, Living the Gospel.